What's going on, you guys? So, Grant Tactician, the guy is behind the upcoming American Civil War game, 1861 to 1865. This is a strategy mixed with a tactical game, and this game is basically blowing my mind. It's probably going to be the best American Civil War game ever made. So, I'm very hyped about it. They made a dev blog, as you can see, 4 days ago, talking more about the economy. Now, I read their part one, which was awesome. I mean, like it dove into the economy system, and I was just kind of like taken back by how much depth there was in there. So let's look at what this one's going to do for us. All right, I'm going to skip this front part. Most of the economy in Grand Tactician is run by the AI. For example, companies are established automatically near towns depending on the available workforce, connected infrastructure, corporate tax, and local availability of pre-goods and demand for the finished product. What really sticking out here is this part right here where it says companies. So from what I'm seeing here is there's going to be like a whole nother layer to this game that's going on behind the scenes that you can or cannot interact with. So I mean, like you can see these companies being formed or dismantled or trading behind the scenes, and I wonder what kind of interactions you can have with this. So these companies produce more than 30 goods which are circulating through the trade system, all produced to feed and arm your economy, population, military units, and fleets. Supply depots are building up stock in weapons, ammunition, and provisions to supply nearby armies. Although supply depots can be captured and constructed by the player, you will always need to take care of about your supply lines, as trade and supply routes can be cut off to reduce the condition and morale of the effective units. If a unit operates far from its supply base, the supply trains take longer to reach it, resulting in lower supply rates. If you overstretch your supply lines, you may use means like Sherman on his march through Georgia in 1861, raiding and foraging, but who knows the outcome of such operations? The economy in the affected region would suffer, people would starve, maybe more men are rushing into the enemy ranks. Interesting. Land of the free, but not for all. A very controversial and sensitive topic for us was the representation of slavery in our game. As slavery was the main cause of the war, we decided not to abandon it to play safe, sanitizing the evils of men, as that would desecrate the integrity of the historical story we're attempting to portray. From an economic perspective, the use of slaves and the summer farms led to a plunge in production costs of agricultural products, thus leading to a huge competitive advantage. A summer farmer could have returns of 20% on his investment, much more than the average return on industrial investments. In reality, the northern states had nearly 10 times the industrial output than the southern states, while 84% of the southern economy was related to agriculture, especially cane cotton. These effects were accurately simulated in our game, but we will also add a pre-war campaign scenario which will allow the player to push the economic development into another direction by using certain political means. So maybe in 1861, South has industrial dominance and blocks northern harbors, while the North needs to buy blockade runners from Britain. Whoa. That's going to be an interesting turn of events. Looking back into history, the U.S. pre-war economy was closely linked to Europe, especially Great Britain and France were depending on the colonial goods like cotton and tobacco. The player will need to negotiate trade treaties. Ooh, I like that. And secures export routes, while there will also be an option to produce products from Europe, weapons, and modern battleships, for example. The latter was mostly an option used by the Confederacy as money was better available than production sites. Although we allow European nations to intervene in the war, Britain and France will weigh what to gain and what to lose. So blocking southern harbors to push cotton prices may not force Britain to react if the country is more depending on Union wheat deliveries, which is a more important topic as well, due to higher demand since the Crimean War. But maybe the Confederate player increases the pain further by adopting an export ban on cotton, as old world superpowers use blockade as a means for their own warfare. A blockade tight enough may prevent intervention as well. Military focus maintained. A further aspect of the war was change of the means of transports. Canals and later railroads not only affected troop movements but also trade routes. The railroad network can be expanded to further strengthen infrastructure. This will be an important issue, especially in pre-war scenarios. Trade flows much faster along major rivers like Mississippi, many canals leading west and railroads, making them priority targets for military operations. Especially raiding tactics could disturb or even cut trade and supply routes, resulting in lower production, more expensive supplies, and less corporate development. This is directly connected to the morale of the public, which is a key factor that allows waging the war to a decisive conclusion. That's really interesting there. So basically, if you let the Union come in, take over the supply routes, basically devastate the economy, it's going to affect the long-term viability of the war, right? So, for example, if the Union goes into Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and screws up trade routes as well as the agricultural output right there, right? The population might just force you, right, to just say, look, we're done, just cancel it. We're done, just enough. So that's going to be interesting. As you can see, the economy works very detailed in the background, but grand tacticians don't need to be afraid. A player will only need to make a few major decisions to influence the economic state of his nation, either by certain policies or determine the economic framework on a macro scale. Also, the economic system is not as vulnerable as in my previous game, The 7 Years' War, where each industry building can produce only one type of goods. Now, a single iron works can produce rifles, artillery pieces, ammunition, depending on demand and expertise. So there would not be a total lack of needed goods, but as the production suffers, prices will skyrocket and will hurt the whole nation. Wow. All right. So a couple things taken from this. There's a lot of stuff in this. All right. So the one thing I really like is that you don't have to micromanage everything. And I think that's really important, especially if you're, commanding armies in the field and you're going into tactical battles. Last thing you want to do is kind of be overwhelmed by the economic system. So I would like to affect the economic system, but not like on a micro level, which is really good. A couple of the things that I did like, I like the fact that a single factory could produce different types of goods, which is good. And so if production suffers, prices skyrocket. Like that. I also like the fact that where was this? That you do have a sandboxing mode here, right? So the South, if you do in the pre-war scenario, right, you can, kind of guide the South to make more factories so they can kind of compete with the Union and kind of turn the tables around. I like those kind of things, kind of goes at the war on many different levels. So overall, guys, I'm very, very excited about this game. And doing some really amazing things. I love how the economy is such a vital factor in this game. You can't just ignore it, right? You have to kind of keep on top of it, but not at a micro level. You just got to make sure your guns are being produced, for ammo, that the enemy armies are not, disrupting the supply routes or affecting your production. So those are critical things that even, in the Civil War was critical and vital. So I can't wait for this game to come out. This is going to be incredible. This will be the best American Civil War game ever made. So I can't wait. Hopefully 2019. That does it for this, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.